And welcome back once again. So this is the third video in our three-part series, and right now we're looking at this guy right here. That's the Jeep Grand Cherokee Trailhawk. Now we're driving all the Trailhawk models. We've been through the Compass and the Cherokee, so if you want to see those videos, make sure you go back and find them right now. This video is all about this Grand Cherokee here on 7 Mile Rim Trail in Moab, Utah. Let's get out there. Okay, so now we're here in the Big Papa Grand Cherokee. We have completed over half easily of this 7 Mile Rim Trail. We've had all sorts of different conditions today, from, you know, the dry, slick rocks that Moab is really known for, to some sand and some snow. So we've really been able to put these Trailhawks to the test, and especially the tires, you know, we've been able to really feel the grip. So here in the Grand Cherokee Trailhawk, we get a set of Goodyear Wranglers with Kevlar protection. So this Grand Cherokee we're in does have the air suspension. Now with the air suspension, you're able to lift the body up and you can get 10.8 inches of ground clearance to the body. What it does change is the approach, departure, and breakover angles, and they all feel quite generous. And coming up and down these steps here, we've had no issues whatsoever yet in the Grand. Now under the hood is certainly what makes this Grand Cherokee kind of exciting compared to the other Trailhawk models. You can get the 3.6 liter Pentastar V6, but this model we're in here has the 5.7 liter Hemi V8. And unlike the Ram 1500, here it makes 360 horsepower and 390 pound-feet of torque, which is quite a bit of torque. And, you know, power has not been an issue out here. And you know, more so than the Compass or the Cherokee, which both kind of feel adequately powered, the Grand Cherokee feels like it's got some real power behind it. Another neat option here in the Grand Cherokee, which is also available in the Wrangler, is off-road pages. So you go into the apps in your Uconnect infotainment system, and off-road pages shows you all kinds of relevant off-road information, from your steering wheel angle to exactly what each one of your wheels is doing, which one of your wheels is slipping, your altitude, your GPS coordinates, all kinds of cool information from when you're off-road, and that's all accessible right here from your infotainment system. And you know, those are fun features. Those are the kind of features where if someone's buying a Trailhawk, they're like, you know what, yeah, clearly Jeep takes this seriously enough, and they want you to get out there on the trail and have some fun. So I definitely think off-road pages is a pretty cool thing. Now, off-roading aside, the other thing that's hard not to notice in this Grand Cherokee is how nice this interior is, especially compared to the Compass and the Cherokee, which are both fine on the inside, but they don't really stand out. This Grand Cherokee is quite nice in here. Lots of nice materials, really kind of clean design. It definitely feels more premium than the other two, but it also costs quite a bit more. This Grand Cherokee Trailhawk we're in right here costs $70,000 in Canada, so it's not exactly cheap. You are paying for some of this luxury, and you have to give credit to the suspension. We're actually going back through this whoop section now that we came through with the Cherokee, and the Cherokee I was at about 15 miles an hour, and it was just starting to really beat me up, kind of hit the limit. And right now I'm speeding up, I'm doing 18, and this thing's feeling really good. This air suspension does a hell of a job of soaking stuff up. In off-road 2 mode, once you lift it, it actually gets a little stiffer because that airbag is now, you know, really stretched out. But even despite that, when you're comparing it to the other suspension systems here, the bags do a nice job of insulating you. So the other obvious difference between the Cherokee, Grand Cherokee, and Compass is, of course, just the size. So I just mentioned the suspension coming through those whoops. The other thing I play is just the wheelbase here. The Grand Cherokee's got a longer wheelbase, so going through that stuff, you're not getting that, you know, front to back bucking like we were in the Cherokee. However, there's the trade-off that the longer your wheelbase is, the worse your breakover is, so you do have to worry about that a bit off-road, although the air suspension almost solves that problem too, being able to lift the body up. All right, so we got a couple little side hills here. Let's see how this Grand Cherokee feels. Stick it to the hill. Nice. Yeah, it felt really good, and I mean, we haven't been in too many tricky articulation spots yet, but so far I would say that the Grand Cherokee seems to like to keep its wheels on the ground the most. The Cherokee did quite good as well. The Compass seemed to always want to lift the wheel. And this isn't the most capable Trailhawk model, I would say, because it doesn't have a locker like the Cherokee does. All the Grand Cherokee has is an ELSD, an electronic limited slip. Now, we haven't really been putting the diff to the test today, but once or twice when sort of walking up some of these steps, I could feel the rear end sort of doing its power distribution thing. And the thing I'll say for all these Jeeps we've driven today is that they all seem to react very quickly. They are all able to split torque and send power to different wheels. And in auto mode, if you just leave it in auto, you don't worry about the drive modes. Yeah, you know, they figure out exactly where the power needs to be. They make the decision, and then the power's there. And all three of them have just really good off-road focused brains. But like the other ones, we do have drive modes here in the Grand Cherokee. We have sand mode, mud mode, you have rock, and you have snow. And we've been running in snow, and basically all that does is it makes sure that the four-wheel drive system is locked up at all times. And those drive modes are nice. They're sort of a preemptive attack, so when you look at an obstacle, you decide which mode to be in, and that just means that the vehicle is going to be prepared before you get into the situation. Because in auto, like I mentioned, it does think quickly, but even still, sometimes once you get into a situation, auto won't be enough, so you want to be able to be prepared before you jump in. So you can always tell a Trailhawk model regardless of the vehicle because they has red tow hooks and Trailhawk badging, but all of these also get these black hood decals, and what they actually do is, besides looking cool and sort of setting the model further apart, they cut down the glare from the sun. So today it actually hasn't been that sunny, to be honest, but it's been snowing quite a bit, and sometimes with the snow you can get some glare off of the white, and the sun has peeked out a few times. And before today, I never really noticed that that black decal on the hood made any difference, but now that it was pointed out to me, yeah, you know what, cutting down that glare just means that you're gonna be able to keep your eyes on the trail, and that's a good thing. And now we're back with this Grand Cherokee, so here's just sort of my final thoughts. First of all the Trailhawk models, actually, honestly, of all the Jeep models, Wrangler included, this has to be the most comfortable off-roader that Jeep offers. The interior is gorgeous, and then you get this air suspension, and it does a really nice job of insulating you from the trail and keeping things real smooth. When you do put it up into off-road 2 mode, it does stiffen up a little bit because, you know, those airbags are just stretching out, so it doesn't give you, you know, as much room for compression, but that's understandable. But compared to the other Trailhawk models, it's like no competition. This Grand Cherokee was just so much more comfortable. And the other, you know, reason for that is the wheelbase. You know, you got a bit more wheelbase here, so going up and over some of those steps and through some of those whoops, this thing just, you know, stays very flat. And then add on to the fact that this model is the only Trailhawk that you can get with the V8, and it just makes it that much more exciting. You know what, spending a day on the trails with this Grand Cherokee, it really does deliver the whole package. It's comfortable and quiet on-road, and it's capable and comfortable off-road. Now, it doesn't have a locking diff. It gives you that electronic limited slip, which is kind of the next best thing. I sort of wish Jeep would have gone for the full locker like they do in the Cherokee, but the ELSD did serve us pretty well today. So if you want to combine your off-road experience with some real comfort and luxury, this Grand Cherokee Trailhawk is probably the Trailhawk model for you. But now it's time for me to tell you which one of these 3 Trailhawk models I would buy. So we drove the Compass Trailhawk, the Cherokee Trailhawk, and this Grand Cherokee Trailhawk. Now, the Trailhawk badge brings the same or nearly the same set of attributes to all these vehicles. So, you know, a slight lift, skid plates, red tow hooks, a graphics package, different off-road driving modes. So each one of these is the most off-road capable in its lineup. And obviously you can't directly compare a Grand Cherokee to a Compass, you know, you might just need a different sized vehicle. But if all you're thinking about is off-road, if you want a Trailhawk and you want to hit some tough trails, if it were up to me, if it was my money, I would be buying the Cherokee Trailhawk. That thing just feels like it's the right size for these trails. The Grand can feel a little big out there, and then the Compass can feel a little small, a little overmatched. The Cherokee just feels really right size for the trails, nice and nimble, and then it gets a real locker. You know, it's hard to argue with it getting a proper locker, a real 2-speed transfer case. You know what, the Grand Cherokee here is sort of the Luxo barge of the crew. The Compass over there is kind of the bare bones off-road model. It has just enough to go off-road. The Cherokee Trailhawk is the most legitimate off-roader of this crew, and that's exactly why I would spend my dollars on that thing. So as always, guys, make sure you tell me in the comments which Trailhawk you would buy, and then hit subscribe and come right back here to TFL for the latest news, views, and real-world reviews. See ya.